Ryan, before we get too much into kind of what you do now, let's talk a little bit about your upbringing, where you were born, and kind of where you grew up, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. So I was born in a small city in Alabama called Jasper, population less than 20,000 people. And, I grew up with both of my parents and a sister. And yeah, it's always difficult to think, because your childhood is just your childhood. So it's always difficult to like reflect back on it and think, what are the things worth saying that are unique? But I think for me, that kind of just the piece that I just said of, growing up with both of my parents in a smaller city feels kind of unique. I know the people around me, like in the neighborhood I grew up in, it wasn't the best neighborhood, but that was one of the things I noticed when I was younger is that not everyone had both of their parents. And so it's one of those things that as a kid, you don't like, I was aware of it, but it wasn't something I was consciously thinking of. And it's just more so something that I see now that I reflect back. But yeah, that's probably like in a nutshell, me growing up as a kid, just a small town kind of guy, not in the best area.
What do you think is one of the biggest benefits of having both your mom and your dad compared to families that were broken?
I think so. There's a few things. There's pretty big impact that I think it had on me just because my parents' temperaments were kind of different.
Mm.
So my dad was very much, the authoritative type parent of like, this is what you're going to do. My mom was a bit more relaxed. I could always probably the best way to contrast it. So I played basketball when I was a kid, and I would always remember after a basketball game, my no matter how I played, my mom would be like, "You did great," um, you know, all those sort of like positive reinforcements. And no matter how well I did, my dad always had a critique for me. And so I think very early on, just having that balance between the two of them, it showed me that there is room for praise, but there's always room for growth. And I think it enabled me to accept criticism and adjust, even if I was, you know, doing well or perceived as doing well.
So during that time frame, you went to high school. What were your thoughts or ambitions about going to college? Kind of like what was your, kind of. I always find it interesting. People usually change their major 3 times, but it's always interesting to find out a little bit. Like I know, like what was I thinking when I was like a freshman versus when I was a senior, and then once I actually got into it. Talk about your journey a little bit through that. 'Cause I know there's a lot of kids, they go to college, they might have taken out a loan, they might have to go to school, maybe they can't go to junior college first. There's all sorts of different paths. Talk a little bit about your path and then what's your takeaway been from that.
Yeah. So college itself was never in question in my head. I think my parents pretty much had it set in my mind that college was going to be the path because for most of the careers that financially as well as like from a fulfillment standpoint would pan out, they would require school. So I don't think either of my parents ever tried to push me down any particular like tract of college, but it was definitely not a question in my mind that after high school I was going to college. So that was for sure going to be a thing. Throughout high school though, I was not at some point I think I had became sure that I was going to go into physical therapy for some reason. I don't know why because I did not like well, I kind of do know why. I didn't like hospitals. I didn't like the hospital setting. I didn't like most things directly in medicine. I was always very like weary of needles and all those sorts of things. But when I played basketball, I got injured as a sophomore, I think. And I had to go into physical therapy. And I just met this physical therapist that was really great. And I was just talking with him. And I guess it was just at that time, so much of my life like was basketball. So I was just thinking, what are practical ways that I can stay, involved in sports? Because I played tennis as well, but I was just trying to think, like, what are practical ways that I can be involved in these things? And so I just kind of got into the thinking of like physical therapy.
Mhm.
But like you said, I changed majors multiple times. I got out of that very
We all
quickly.
do. We all
Yes.
do. And
And then
all
I
you kids at
realized what
home,
actually aligns.
and any of you kids at home, it's okay. Try
Yes.
not to go too far in debt. Try to just, that's why I like to, a lot of my kids actually, they dual enrolled in high school and they went to junior college. And I was always such a defender. I'm like, you think junior college English is any different than the regular English? Like all you care about is that 3 credits and moving on, man.
Exactly.
Unless you're going to be an English major, you're going to teach. The rest of us, it's just a little checkbox on our requirements.
Exactly. And if you transfer over to a 4-year school, your degree looks the exact same as if you went to a 2-year school first.
It's funny because I do work in the medical field, and the job I'm at now is the first job that ever asked for a copy of my degree. The whole career path that I've had, and it was like no one ever actually asked for the actual copy. And I thought to myself, man, no one ever asked. Like it never came up. Like this is
do I really need this?
I mean, what did I pay for here? This is crazy. Yeah.
Well, I'm in tech, and eventually I landed in tech, so that's where I am now. And people, I've never shown my degree either. My first job actually got prior to graduating, so it required the degree that I have. But I just said I had it, and then I went into the interview, and then I explained, oh no, I'm graduating in a few semesters, and then I just got the job. And every job since, I've never had to show it. I've never even really touched it. It's at my mom's house. Like she has my degree.
It's not even in your house,
right?
All right, I'm going to talk to your wife and make sure she gets a copy.
Yeah, she probably wouldn't mind if I had a copy here.
Yeah, it'd probably be good.